Hello, we are back. We are doing another day of our Be Holy for I Am Holy book club. And we are reading The Complete Visions of Catherine Emmerich. And we are on day 47. If you'd like to go to the other days, Penn will post the playlist. You can touch it and it'll take you, I think, to YouTube, is it? And you can start from whatever day you'd like. And today it's the flight into Egypt. So it's a little bit longer of a reading, which is good because this is an important part of Joseph saying yes again to God.
Love
what
saying
he says. So here we go.
Okay.
Do you want to say something, Hen, before I start?
Anne Catherine Emmerich has been approved by the church. She was beatified in what year, Jeanette?
In 2004 by
2004.
John Paul II.
And all of her writings have been checked for historical accuracy. She was in bed. She would have had no way to know some of the historical accuracy. As anything that's checked out by the church, it's checked out thoroughly. So you can know that they approve it and accept it.
Yes. And I also just found on Audible, because I have the Audible app now. Well, I did have it with you, but I got my own now because I want to put K-dramas in there and stuff. But anyway, I found the complete podcast of her. Yes. And her whole life stories in there, but you got to start on part 1.
And I'll put the link. I'll put the link
below. Put the link. Yes, for you guys to go on. And it's totally free, but don't start from the top one. Go all the way down to part 1. Okay, so here we go. The flight into Egypt. When Herod saw that the kings did not return, he thought they had failed to find Jesus, and the whole affair seemed to be dying out. But after Mary's return to Nazareth, Herod heard of Simeon's and Anna's prophecies at the presentation of the child in the temple, and his fears were reawakened. I saw him in as great disquietude as at the time of the king's stay in Jerusalem. He was conferring with some aged Jews who read to him from long rolls of writings mounted on rods. He had given orders for a number of men to be gathered together in a large court, and there provided with weapons and uniforms. Things went on as they do with us when soldiers are recruited. I saw that he sent those troops to various places around Jerusalem, from which the mothers were to be summoned to the holy city. He caused their numbers to be everywhere ascertained. He took these precautions in order to prevent the tumult that would necessarily follow if the news of the projected slaughter of the children was spread. I saw those soldiers in 3 different places in Bethlehem, in Gilgal, and in Hebron. The inhabitants were in great consternation, because not able to divide why a garrison was placed in their towns. The soldiers remained about 9 months in those places, and the murder of the little ones began when John was about 2 years old. Anne and Mary Healy were still at the home of the Holy Family in Nazareth. Mary, with her child, slept in the apartment to the right behind the fireplace. Anne to the left, and between hers and that of Saint Joseph, Mary Healy. These rooms were not so high as the house itself, and were cut off from one another only by wicker partitions. The ceiling also was of wicker wood. Mary's couch was surrounded by a curtain or screen. At her feet, in his own little bed, lay the infant Jesus within Mary's reach when she sat upright. I saw a radiant youth standing at the side of Joseph's couch and speaking to him. Joseph sat up, but overcome by sleep, again lay down. Then the youth caught him by the hand and raised him up. Joseph, now thoroughly aroused, stood up, and the youth vanished. When I saw Joseph going to the lamp that burned in the center of the house and getting a light, he proceeded to Mary's chamber, knocked and asked permission to enter. I saw him going in and speaking to Mary, who, however, did not open her screen. After this, he went out to the stable for the ass, and returning, went into a room wherein were stored all kinds of household goods. He was getting things ready for a journey. Mary arose quickly, clothed herself for traveling, and went to arouse Anne, who got up at once along with Mary Healy and the little boy. I cannot express how touching was the trouble of Anne and the sister. Anne embraced Mary over and over again with many tears, clasping her to her heart as if she were never again to see her. The sister threw herself flat on the floor and wept. Only just before setting out did they take the infant Jesus from his little bed. They all pressed the child to their hearts, and it was given to the little boy to embrace. Mary then took the child upon her breast, resting it in a strip of stuff that fastened over her shoulders. A long mantle enveloped both mother and child, and Mary wore over her head a large veil, which hung down on both sides of her face. She made but few preparations for the journey, and all she did was done quietly and quickly. I did not see her even swathing the child afresh. The holy travelers took only a few things with them, far fewer than they had brought from Bethlehem, only a little bundle and some coverings. Joseph had a leather bottle filled with water and a basket with compartments in it, in which were loaves, little jugs, and little birds. There was a cross seat for Mary and the child on the ass. Also a little footboard. They went forward a short distance with Anne, for they took the road in the direction of her house, only somewhat more to the left. When Joseph approached with the ass, Anne again embraced the Blessed Mary, who then mounted and rode off. It was not yet midnight when they left the house. The child Jesus was 12 weeks old. I had seen 3 times 4 weeks. I saw Mary Healy going to her mother's house in order to send Eliud with a servant to Nazareth, after which she returned with the boy to her own home. I next saw Anne in Joseph's house, packing everything up for Eliud and the servant to remove to her own house. 10.
The Holy Family passed by many places that night. Hold on, let me. I apologize. The Holy Family passed by many places that night, and not till morning did I see them resting under a shed and taking a little refreshment. I saw them taking their first night's lodging in the little village of Nazareth, between Legio and Masaloth.
The poor, oppressed people of this place who lodged the Holy Family were not properly speaking Jews. They had to go far over a mountainous road to Samaria to worship, for their temple was on Mount Gerizim, and they always had to work like slaves on the temple of Jerusalem and other public buildings. The Holy Family could go no further. They were well received by these outcasts, whom they remained the whole of the following day. On their return from Egypt, they again visited those poor people. They did the same, both going and returning from the temple. The first time that the child Jesus made the journey to it. The whole family at a later period was baptized by John, and they afterward joined the disciples of Jesus. The Holy Family on their flight met only 3 inns at which to spend the night. Here at Nazareth, again at Anam or Anaganim, among the camel dealers, and lastly among the robbers. At other times they rested during their tiresome wanderings in valleys and caves and the most out of the way places. Further on from Nazareth, I saw them hidden under the great pine tree near which Mary, on her journey to Bethlehem, had been so cold. The persecution of Herod was known in these parts, and it was consequently unsafe for them. The Ark of the Covenant had once rested under this tree, when Joshua assembled the people and made them renounce their idols. Later, I saw the Holy Family by a well-embalsamed bush, resting and refreshing themselves. The branches of the bush were notched, and out of them oozed the balsam in drops. The child Jesus lay on Mary's lap, his little feet bare. To the left behind them lay Jerusalem, far up from the level of the country in which they then were. When the Holy Family had passed the walls of Gaza, I saw them in the wilderness. No words can depict the difficulties of this journey. They always traveled a mile eastward of the ordinary highway, and as they shunned the public inns, they suffered the want of all necessaries. I saw them quite exhausted, with not a drop of water. The little jug was empty. Drawing near to a low bush some distance from the road, the Blessed Virgin alighted from the ass and sat down upon the dry grass. Suddenly there jetted high before them a spring of water, which spread over the plain. I witnessed their joy. Joseph dug a hole at the little distance and led the ass to it. The poor beast gladly drank from it as it filled. Mary bathed the child in the spring and refreshed herself. The sun shone beautifully for a short time, and the weary travelers were strengthened, and a flight of grateful emotion. They tarried here for 2 or 3 hours. On the 6th night, I saw them in a cave near the mount and the city of Abram. The cave was in a wild ravine from about 1 hour's distance from the grove of Mamre. I saw the Holy Family arrive, worn out and dejected. Mary was very sad. She wept, for they were in want of everything. They rested here a whole day, and many wonders were vouchsafed for them for their refreshment. A spring gushed forth in the cave. A wild goat came running to them and allowed itself to be milked, and they were visibly consoled by an angel. One of the prophets had often prayed in this cave. Samuel had once sojourned in it. David had guarded his father's sheep around it, and to it had often retired to pray. He had in this cave received through angels the divine commands, among them to slay Goliath. The last stopping place of the Holy Family in Herod's dominion was near its confines. The innkeepers appeared to be camel dealers, for I saw a number of camels in an enclosed pasture ground. These people were rude and wild. They enriched themselves by thieving. Still, they received the Holy Family most graciously. This place was distant a couple of hours from the Dead Sea. Once I saw Mary sending a messenger to Elizabeth, who then brought her child to a very concealed place in the desert. Zachary accompanied her only part of the way. When they reached a certain body of water, Elizabeth and the child crossed over on a raft, while Zachary went on to Nazareth by the same route taken by Mary on her visit to Elizabeth. I saw him on his journey. Perhaps he was going to make some inquiries, for there were some friends at Nazareth distressed at Mary's departure. On a starry night, I saw the Holy Family going through a sandy wilderness covered with low thickets. The scene was as vivid before me as if I were really crossing the desert with them. Here and there, under the copse wood, venomous snakes lay coiled. With loud hissing, they approached the path and darted their heads angrily toward the Holy Family. But they, shielded by the light that environed them, stepped securely along. I saw other animals with immense fins like wings on their blackish body, with short feet and a head like that of a fish. They darted along, flying over the ground. At last, the Holy Family came behind the bushes to a deep fissure in the ground, like the walls of a narrow defile, and here they rested. The last place in Judea by which they passed had a name that sounded like Mara. I thought of Anne's ancestral place, but it was not it. The people were very rude and uncivilized, and the Holy Family could get nothing from them by way of refreshment. Leaving this last place and scarcely knowing how to proceed, they pressed through a desolate region. They could find no road, and a dark, pathless mountain height stretched out before them. Mary was exhausted and very sad. She knelt with Joseph, the child, in her arms, and cried to God. And behold, several large wild beasts like lions came running around them, exhibiting friendly dispositions. I understood that they had been sent to show the way. They looked toward the mountain, ran thither, and then turned back again, just like a dog that wants someone to follow it. At last, the Holy Family followed them, and after crossing the mountain, arrived at a very dismal region. And the next one is the Holy Family among robbers. So, wow, that was an interesting ending. They got supernatural help, right? Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah. I was surprised that we didn't hear from her exactly how the angel talked to Joseph, but oh well.
I know. I was
I was hoping for that, but it didn't happen. But it's okay.
thinking that as it went on.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's okay. We got a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me grab this.
She might mention it in the future. You never know, because she jumps back and forth sometimes. So
Yes, she does. She does.
and it's a big book, so I'm hoping
Yes.
that somewhere in the 2,000 pages we're gonna read, it's gonna be.
Yeah, we're gonna get something about it. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this. So let's go back. It doesn't like sound as scary as it would have been because she's not writing it for that, I guess. But they're taught.
Well, it does say that she was wanting.
Right. But here's Herod. That they saw that the kings didn't return. Remember, he told them, when you go back, the three kings that brought the gift, when you go back, come this way so I can know where the child is. They didn't come back. He knew they betrayed him. So, and they had failed to find Jesus. The whole affair seemed to be dying out. But then after Mary's return to Nazareth, Herod heard of Simeon and Anna's prophecies at the presentation in the temple, and
I'm sure he had spies everywhere, spying.
Ears were reawakened. Yes, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure. So here they are looking for the Holy Family, and at that point we know Joseph had a dream, and we know that from the Gospels that he's told to get them out of there, and they start killing babies, anyone under 2 years old, and of course they had to get uh the soldiers remained about 9 months. So John could have been at risk, because remember, John was just a few months older than Jesus. Because remember, she's pregnant when during the visitation to Elizabeth, right? So,
Yes.
and if you notice here, this sounds confusing, but the soldiers remained about 9 months in those places, and the murder of little ones began when John was about 2 years old. So this time period doesn't seem to make sense, because she sees Jesus at 12 weeks old, they have to run, and then they're killing babies. They're 9 months, they're killing babies, but I guess it does make sense in a way. But it seems like there's like a year missing in here, because John is only a few months older than Jesus. So yeah.
It's in Matthew 2:13.
Okay.
It's where it says, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him.
Right.
And that's when he went ahead and
It
wasn't even midnight. He just,
yeah. So apparently he did not know that it was Joseph's child. They displaced Joseph as the king, but they don't really realize that. Joseph is supposed to be where Herod is. He's supposed to be, there's four kings in place of or no, that's later when Jesus
from
was.
the line of David. Joseph was from the line of David. He was
No,
next
no,
to
but I'm
King.
talking about King Herod later on, when Jesus is older, when he goes to persecute him.
Oh,
Then there are four different governors that cover all of Herod's ground. I guess there of Herod's, one of them is, I guess, I don't know if it's his son or what, but there's another Herod. And so it's a different Herod from my understanding. I'm not sure, but I think it's a different one that ends up, So anyway, so here they're killing babies for like a year, thinking let's just get one. They don't realize that Joseph is the king that's supposed to be in Herod's place. He's displaced by the corrupt government. He's supposed to be the king, and they apparently don't. Herod doesn't realize, because he wouldn't be killing all those different babies to find and hoping it would be Jesus. They don't realize that it's Joseph's baby, So, okay, so here I thought this was so interesting how she describes Mary and the child slept in an apartment right above the fireplace, and Anne to the left, and between hers and of St. Joseph, Mary Healy. So St. Joseph and her did not sleep even in the same room, even after she had the baby. So I found that interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Mary Healy was Mary's older sister.
Right.
Anne had Mary Healy before she had Mary.
Right.
And also, if you guys want to know a little bit more about Joseph and his story and his brothers and his family and all that, it's in the other it's like way at the beginning when we read about Mary and where she came from, and Anne, and they came from an awesome tribe.
It's earlier in the book, this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ammonites, was it? They were Ammonites.
Oh, I'm not sure. I know.
Anyway, but yeah,
I know that
you'll get Joseph's story of his childhood that she saw,
Earlier in the book.
early on, and you'll understand he was always so kind and so loving from a very young age.
Yes. Thank you for explaining that, because some people are just joining us, So let me just go back. But Jeanette, do you love this, that they slept in an apartment right behind the fireplace at Anne's house? And Mary Healy, her other daughter, and Joseph, they all had little rooms there. Like, that's how Joseph was young. He wasn't an old man like they try to say. And you guys will hear a little bit more about that. So, in further on. And also for the consecration, we did a St. Joseph consecration. If you want to learn about St. Joseph, I'll put that link below. Oh my gosh, you will learn so much about St. Joseph from the consecration that we did.
It's a beautiful book. It talks about St. Joseph, and you'll get to know him better.
Yeah, it's a 33 day, and it is beautiful. And you can just listen to the beginning where we read it, and you don't have to listen to our discussion after. You could just stop it after.
Yeah, because we talk a lot.
Yeah, we talk a lot. And if you don't want to hear all that, I don't blame you. We're just giving our opinion, and you can just, move on. So anyway, okay, so you can, anyway, it's like 33 days. It's 33-day consecration. So you should go and listen to it. It's beautiful. But sometimes in our discussion, we do give, like we're giving you this now. And if you just listen to the reading, you wouldn't hear this. So it's up to you if you want to listen to us on fast pay, on times 2 fast on YouTube. But anyway, okay, so here we are. They're in this beautiful room, and the house cut off by, the rooms were not high, but they're cut off by wicker partitions. I found that so charming. And they say the way they slept. So, and where does Joseph goes, and he knocks on Mary's door, even though they're married at this point. He knocks on her door. He doesn't sleep there. So she was a perpetual virgin, as the church says. So then he goes in, and they're getting all the things together, and they're scared. This is a mad dash to get out of there. The angel told them, get out and run. So they're scared. And this is where you hear a little bit of the fear, like Anne's sister, they're crying and they're weeping. But we're not hearing as much about the fear as we're hearing about their sadness. But this is a mad dash to get out of there to save the baby. And so this is one of those moments in a story where it's an exciting moment. So you can really read through that a little bit again if you want to get that sense of that. And then so they're getting all their food ready, and they're heading out, and he goes and he gets the ass, and it was not yet midnight. So they're leaving late at night. The baby, it says, child Jesus, was only 12 weeks old. And apparently they send a servant, which returns with the boy to her own home. So they're hiding the other babies, I guess, and then the servants, I'm not sure what that's about, but she sees Anne packing everything up for Eliud and the servant to remove to her own house. I'm not sure what that's talking about there, but I think it's to move Mary Healy with their baby and John. I mean, that his cousin, remember Jesus's cousin that held him? So I don't know if maybe that's why. The Holy Family passed by many places, so they're heading on. They have the food, and they're heading on, and they're trying to stay on the back roads. And they come across some poor oppressed people. Poor people could be the most generous people. I've known many in my life. When I was nursing, I would go to very poor buildings. They were the kindest people, and they would offer you things. And it was always just touched me how the poor, who had so little, but yet rich, are so selfish with their goods. And here these poor, they would offer me things. It was so beautiful. It really made, I had the chance to work in the rich Jewish building or the poor Black building. And I chose the poor Black building because they were so kind, loving, warm, and I enjoyed them. And I would buy them things that I noticed that they needed. I would buy them things. Anyway. So, here they're going through and they're passing, the poor people help them, and then finally they're back on the road again, and they it's the same area where later John would baptize Jesus, and she notices that. Remember, this area is the same area, and they know all these same people, so this is very familiar ground to them. So they go by 3 inns to spend the night, and so this is quite a ways, and they go by the same tree with Mary. And the persecution of Herod is well known in these parts, and they know it's unsafe for them. And then she mentions that the Ark of the Covenant had once rested under this tree when Joshua assembled the people and made them renounce. So Mary rested under that tree. Another parallel, Jeanette. Mary rested under that tree, who is the Ark of the Covenant, when she was pregnant. And again, the Ark of the Covenant rested under it. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and remember that when you give birth, a little piece, I don't know what it's called, but something of your child always stays with you. So I had 4 children, so there's a little bit of each of my children with me at all times. So Mary always had Jesus inside of her, a little piece of holy child.
Yeah, and we honor her. And
Yes.
And she gave the only human part of Jesus that there was, because there was no human father. So his whole body was made up of her, what was made up of her DNA. So just so beautiful.
It is very beautiful.
I'll put the link below of the scientific thing that Jeanette is talking about. And when you think that you have a piece of your children, you'll often hear stories of people in a war or whatever, and they'll hear their mother speaking to them, or the mother will hear that their child was killed, and maybe they hear the child cry for them. There's a lot of stories like that, and I believe that it's that connection, that DNA. There's vibrations. We don't understand this whole world yet, scientifically, like that, and I believe that's why sometimes that happens. Okay, so moving on. So here they are passing the walls of Gaza. You ever hear things about the Gaza Strip on the news, that there's fighting and all? They're always fighting over the Muslims are fighting the Christians, and they're all fighting the Jews to get access to things, and it's just terrible. But those grounds were left by God. There is the only 2,000-year-old land that says God gave it to them. So the Muslims should not be fighting the Jews for that land, because God gave it to them. And it's the only land thing that we know of that's 2,000 years old. But anyway, so they're talking about the difficult journey here, and they're now without water. They drank all the water, and they're sitting down on dry grass, and then all of a sudden, supernaturally, a spring comes forward for Mary, and they're joyful. She witnesses their joy, and then Joseph digs a hole for their animal to get watered, and thank God the poor beast was drinking from it. He was thirsty. And Mary washes themselves, and it's just so beautiful, like just savoring this reading, Jeanette. It's just so beautiful, even though it's stressful and all that. To be able to go along, like I said, it makes my rosary, doing the rosary, much more meaningful when I imagine, as they're getting ready for the mysteries, as I'm moving on, and because now that I'm doing the rosary instead of with help with the book or a video, I'm having to use my imagination, and doing it in the church, because you had told me doing it in the mass. And in fact, the priest mentioned it the other day, and I thought, well, I just learned that from you recently. And so I thought it was so interesting how deeper and deeper I'm going with the rosary because of these things. And this book is helping me so much. Just like when the priest said, well, how would this book help you with the Gospels? Because it's all about the Gospels, and we're getting little glimpses that we believe.
Little tidbits here and there.
And the church says we don't have to believe any mystics, but they do approve it. So it's huge in my mind. You know, I don't always listen to other mystics because there's just too much. But when the church approves it, I take that seriously. And so I take this seriously because I know that they look at every little detail. In any case, so here they are, Mary's after they get all the water and all that, then they move on and they're near another cave, and it's an hour difference. She sees the Holy Family arrive once again, worn out and dejected. Mary's sad and she wept. They're for want of everything, and they have to go in these back roads. So they rest a whole day because they're so exhausted. And again, a spring gushes forth in the cave, and a wild goat comes and brings them milk. I mean, how beautiful is that? And they're visibly consoled by an angel. And you know, Mary must be breastfeeding. The baby's just 12 weeks old, 11, 13 weeks old. So they're bringing a goat. God brings a goat so that Mary can have some nourishment for the baby. How beautiful is that? And they have the little birds too. One of the prophets had often prayed in this cave. Here, once again, we're going back to the Old Testament. You see how she brings it together, and we're seeing all these parallels. Samuel once prayed in there, you know, all these prophets. David guarded his father's sheep around it and often retired and prayed in that very same cave that Mary is at and is exhausted, and God is just saying, it's okay. Here's a goat, here's some water. He's comforting and consoling them physically, which he does with us all the time. If you notice, God will suddenly make money available. Maybe your car broke down or something, and God suddenly makes you get a bonus at work, or you get a bonus somehow for something, you know, or your family, someone gives you a gift of money, or someone gives you a television because your old one blew. God always provides when we pray and we try to be obedient to him. That's what's happening. Jesus, Mary, Joseph, the most people who did as God told them. And he's providing for them, as he will do for you. The more obedient we are, the more he provides for us. And sometimes he sends us difficulties because he's growing us and he's helping us, or someone else's sin intrudes in ours, and he allows them free will, but he consoles us often. Just like this is Herod's sin that's causing this, but he's consoling them. So it's just beautiful. So, okay, so here she sees camel dealers, and and even though they're thieves, they receive them graciously. But the next one talks about them being among robbers. So I'm wondering if they're being gracious to get them in their clutches. So we don't know. This place is a distant couple of hours from the Dead Sea. They could be, if they find out who they are, they might send word and get money from Herod to deliver them. So we don't know, but this is.
Well, we don't pre-read, guys. We are just as surprised as you are.
It's about to get scary, it sounds like. So once Mary sending the messenger to Elizabeth, who then brought her child to a very concealed place, because remember, John is just a few months older. So, and then Zachary accompanies her part of the way. Now, Zachary is Elizabeth's husband, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When they see, Jeanette knows a lot more about the Bible. She remembers the stories. I've been studying it, but bigger picture, not as many details. Jeanette knows better details. That's why I'm always asking her. It's always good to have a friend that knows the Bible even a little better than yourself, or some things you know that they don't know, and you exchange, you know, and you learn. So anyway, so they are also outrunning Herod. And then the same route taken by Mary on her visit to Elizabeth. She saw him on his journey. Perhaps he was going to make some inquiries. There were some friends at Nazareth distressed at Mary's departure. You see rumor. They didn't have telephones back then, but they, there were rumors and stuff. On a starry night, I love that. On a starry night, the Holy Family reminds you of the painting on the Starry Night, Van Gogh. I saw the Holy Family going through a sandy wilderness covered with low thickets, and the scene is very vivid. They're crossing the desert, and the wood and the venomous snakes are around. What do the snakes represent? The devil, right? Loud hissing, and they are angry toward the Holy Family. They say that Satan can affect animals too, but they shielded by the light that environed them and stepped securely. Once again, God is protecting them. And then this is a weird part I thought was odd. She sees these animals with fins like wings and blackish bodies with short feet and a head like a fish. That's weird. Maybe there was an
It kind of sounds to me like in Genesis that, remember how the serpent had feet and had like wings and stuff? Remember that because of what he did, God chastised him and said, "You're going to roll on your belly forever now." Kind of sounds like that, doesn't it?
Well, I'm sure there are animals that are not that were not protected and died out. So maybe something like that.
I don't know. Maybe a little prehistoric. I don't know, but it kind of sounds kind of freaky.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like black lizards with wings of some sort, like almost prehistoric, like you said. Weird. So I found that interesting. At last, the Holy Family came from the bushes and the deep fissure. In the last place in Judea, which they passed, the name sounded like Marek. See, names of maps change over time. As we know, things have changed on our maps since back then. And she thought of Anne's ancestral place, but it was not. So it was something that sounded like it. The people were rude to them. And a lot of venomous, this is the same place where there's venomous snakes and there's uncivilized people. So it just tells you an energy of an area. So, and the Holy Family could get nothing from them. They were uncivilized, almost like, like the just uncivilized people, like the Indians or whatever. Leaving this last place and scarcely knowing how they press through to the desolate, and they're in the dark right before it get, this is in like a bad neighborhood kind of thing. Mary's exhausted and sad. She's crying to God. And what does God do? He sends lions to surround them and keep them safe. Another supernatural help.
Awesome.
And sends them to show the way like an animal toward the mountain and ran thither. And a dog that wants someone to follow it. That's what the lions are behaving like dogs. And that's from God, like God's sending them. And at last the Holy Family follows them. And after crossing the mountain, arrive at a very dismal region. And that's where the Holy Family among robbers, which we will read the next time we read. Because sometimes we may skip a day if something's going on in our lives. We didn't even plan to read today, but Jeanette got some time, so we ended up reading because I overslept this morning. Sorry, guys. So anyway, Jeanette, was that such a beautiful reading? Even
I enjoyed it.
Scary.
I enjoyed it.
A lot of what did you enjoy most? The supernatural stuff, right?
I liked the protection that they got from God, and I liked how they weren't frightened and how they just did immediately what God asked to do. I mean, they just brought little things, that's all. They didn't bring even as much as they took to get there from where they were with the three kings, the birth of Jesus, which, guys, is amazing. You gotta go back and watch it. I think it's day 34, the birth of Jesus. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I'll put a link below of it.
So yeah, that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed how they just listened and obeyed without even thinking twice, knew that they were going to be taken care of. They didn't think, oh my gosh, I don't got enough money. I don't got enough food. What am I going to do? I got to breastfeed. Oh, baby Jesus. Oh, my goodness. What am I going to do? No, they just said, we're going to be okay. God's got this.
Jesus,
The
I
faith, the faith,
Jesus,
right?
I trust in you. God, I trust in you. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that was, oh, I love the supernatural. I love the angels, Jeanette. The angels helped
Yes.
them. They helped with Joseph, and then they told them other things. They went along. Oh God.
Angels are messengers. Angels are spiritual beings that are pure spirit. They are persons of pure spirit. This is what we learned.
One of our own. We each get one when we're in the womb. They are
Yes.
to us.
And they also have free will. I didn't know that, but they do. And that's why a third of them left. And that's at the very beginning. God created, at the very beginning, he created light. Then he created darkness. But the light he created were the heavens. Because later he creates the sky. But I didn't think of that until
Everything.
we're learning so much about the angels, because the very first thing that was created apparently was the light, and the light in the heavens were the angels.
We're
And then the
learning.
darkness was when the angels fell, right?
Yeah, we're learning from theologians about when the angels were created, like Brant Petrie and Taylor Marshall talks about it, about the creation. All these theologians, they all agree that's when angels. And then we're also learning all about the angels, the intimate details about the angels from our 2 angel courses that we're taking. And one is a formation of becoming a third order of the holy angels, which will take us 3 years. We're doing the 12 months first for our guardian angel, and then we learn to hear him and listen to him, and this helps us to learn. And that's what Jeanette is teaching you about right now. And then
very interesting, guys.
Yeah, and then the 2-year formation is the holy angels. We're going to learn more about Saint Michael and Saint Rat, all the other ones. So
yeah, maybe one day we'll do a little reading or a little book club on angels. That would be cool.
Once we're done our formation.
Let us learn first, and then we'll
let us
share.
You're teaching them tidbits. So follow.
Yeah, little tidbits.
Yeah, she just gave you a lot of good stuff. So guys, thank you. It was a beautiful reading, and we will see you next time.
Yes, we'll see you another day for another reading. And if you missed any, you guys can go back and find them on the playlist. Like day 34, the birth of Jesus is so beautiful. And also, I don't know what day it is, but it's in the beginning ones. We actually have the name of them on each one, and it has Joseph's story.
Yes.
Of when he was a child and his parents and where he came from.
I'll try to find that.
Yeah. Also, there's Mary's story, and Anne, Mary's mother, and
it's so
her dad. So yeah.
So good. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.